Well, big man.
And speaking of crap that we don't need, but it is a capitalist America that we live in.
Yes.
Big Man Gear. Big Man Gear is the big man. That's me. Idea is a funny merch brand. It is every corny dad joke. Well, everything that I think is a corny dad joke. And meme on a t-shirt for sale on Amazon Prime. Currently, you can buy the unapproved Idiots versus Idiots logo tee, which Danny absolutely hates.
Yep.
At bigmangear.com, because who doesn't need another t-shirt that tells everyone how you feel about their personal news source?
Yeah. And by the way, for those of you that are uninitiated and are not following us on Twitter at Idiots the Idiots, you may have noticed that I tweeted out that we are back in negotiations. We have not got the attorneys involved yet. But that might very well happen. And so we are negotiating with some of our graphics and branding. So yeah, let's just jump into
comes back to
story.
Danny's a big old baby. That's all it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, okay. I mean, here's the thing. Guess what now, big man? I'm getting the attorneys involved.
Actionable.
Yep, that's actionable.
Words.
Yeah, we have it on video. So I'm literally right now. Okay, I'm texting Eli right now, and Rothstein, and Berg will be in contact with your people. So my
Anytime.
people are going to call your people.
Yeah.
And we are like a divorced couple where he ends up having to pay both legal bills anyway. Speaking of divorce and things that are really, really sad, my favorite electronics store, which I moved from the north and I moved to Austin, and I still remember walking into Fry's, the Fry's in North Austin. I remember, I don't know who I texted one of my friends who's no longer with us. He didn't die. He's just in prison.
Mopac and Parmer. Fries.
Yeah.
Mopac and Parmer. Yeah.
Right. And I remember going into the store and going, did I just go back to the 90s?
Yes.
Like, this isn't a throwback electronics store. It's a Fry's Electronics just one day just said, yeah, we're not in business anymore.
Well, look, and they probably, when you get down to it, I've wondered for years how they've stayed in business.
Yeah, no, and this was 6 or 7 years ago where I said, how does this even exist then?
Yeah, well, because Fry's Electronics, I'll tell you, again, they had a Fry's where I grew up in Dallas, and Fry's was the essentially massive Radio Shack, right? I didn't know until we started researching the story that it's never been a corporate business. It's been a family-owned. It was created by three brothers, the Fry brothers, and I did know that they were a little offbeat. Your Fry's in different towns, they kind of took on
they all have
the weird stuff about that location.
Yeah, so like the one in New Mexico looks like a spaceship.
Yeah, and the one in Houston's got oil derricks and stuff like this. So it was gimmicky, right, or whatever. But I remember in Dallas when I couldn't find a computer, component, a cord of some sort. I knew that I could go to Fry's and they would have it. They were a massive Walmart-sized superstore for Radio Shack, right?
But I think here's the thing: they're like a super Walmart with Radio Shack level resistors and cables. And
right.
So when I first moved to Austin, I walked into the store and I was like, what planet am I on?
Well, it's because when you did that 6 years ago, you think about when this was created back in the 80s, this was a great idea, which is why they grew the way that they did. And they made a lot of money for a long time. What happened to them? The same thing that happened to Blockbuster, the same thing that happened to anything. They did not transition their business during the last 20 years. They're online still up until months ago. I don't remember, several months ago. It wasn't too terribly long ago. I went to Fry's.com to buy something. I never bought anything from Fry's.com because their website was garbage. It was hard to find anything. It was hard to, you know what I mean? It wasn't easy to use. So you have a great business that did not change with the times, did not listen. And then not only did they not do that, but when their businesses apparently a decade ago started to fail, they did nothing to change it. They ended up falling all the way from what you and I think is Fry's and a great store to be in to they were basically a consignment shop. I didn't know that until I started reading the articles of this story. They didn't even own their own inventory at the end.
Yeah, they towards the end, somewhere in 2020, before the great events of 2020, they went from buying inventory to having consignment inventory because they couldn't afford to put inventory on the shelves.
Right.
So they were already in a situation where, and there are videos of this on YouTube that you can look up if that's interesting to you, where they're basically like they have these huge, and they're probably 50,000 square foot warehouses.
Oh, they're super Walmart sized stores, right there,
and they're empty shelves.
Sure, because they couldn't afford to put the stuff on them.
I remember when I first walked into, and I grew up where the flagship headquarters store of Best Buy is. I actually worked at it when I was in college. I'm from the the greater Minneapolis-St. Paul area. That's where Best Buy's from, and this was how Best Buy was when I was in the 90s when I was a kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
They had this really cool car audio setup. They had all these couches where the TVs are.
Yeah.
This was a throwback, and I was like, and then the part that really just sent me for a loop was they had a cafe.
They did. Really?
Huh? I don't. And the thing I bought, and I went to this cafe, and it looks like it's straight out of 1995. And when I first started college, way, way, way back when I was 16 years old in 2004 or 5, it was kind of before the energy drink craze. And there was an energy drink spelled BAWLS, balls. And it came in a glass bottle. Now, I remember before we could buy, there was not Red Bull or anything else at college where I went to college. And you could buy them, and they tasted fine, but it was like this first time where you're like, hey, man, right? And I hadn't seen one in a decade. And they had them at this, where I felt like I walked through the door into another dimension.
Right.
And they had them, and I was like, where am I? Okay. I don't understand where I am right now. What year? I don't know. It's not where am I, when am I? Like, what year is it?
Yeah.
And I kept looking around the store, and they had inventory. And this is back when they carried their own inventory or sold their own inventory. Mm-hmm. They had gaming laptops that I've never been able to see in person anywhere. Right?
Right.
And I'm like, this place, I was expecting, I was like, oh, they're going to be closed in 2 weeks.
Well,
they're not going to be open for long.
No, and I agree with you, but they somehow limped on. I'm going to put a different spin on it. It doesn't surprise me that they closed. It doesn't surprise me that the last year of Dos Equis was the nail in the coffin, right? With even smaller foot traffic. And they had a department in Fry's for the last decade that fixed computers and stuff like that I'm sure was lucrative for them. Anytime I'd ever been in there and talked to one of those people, they were knowledgeable. They knew what they were doing. They seemed to have contracts, and maybe that's what propped them up for a while, was they seemed to have contracts with companies for repairing computers and stuff like that. But computer components was usually why I went into them, because they sold used ones, kind of like GameStop, does games.
Yeah.
They would sell used video cards and stuff like that. But anyway, so I'm going to put a different spin on this. I think this business, like a lot of businesses that have shuttered in the last 18 months, again, is going to give, this is why I think the coming out of this Dos Equis is going to be one of the biggest opportunities in yours and my lifetimes, because things like that may have limped in to the beginning of Dos Equis didn't make it out the other side.
Yeah,
that
survive.
Does not mean that those services aren't needed coming out the other side.
It just meant that whoever was providing that service didn't have a concept of how to do it correctly.
Or just couldn't last it. Right? Look, there are businesses all across America, regardless of whether it's in Fry's Electronics or restaurants or whatever, that from month to month, even though they look like big business to you, scrape by paycheck to paycheck. Most companies are like most Americans. They live paycheck to paycheck. A restaurant uses last month's, what I mean, things to pay the rent for this month, and and so on and so forth. And then you turn that into 18 months with basically no revenue, and it could kill almost any business.
Right. I do think that the device repair and maintenance business, there hasn't been a real national player to come in and be like, hey, we repair phone screen. We, and doing these kinds of things. What's funny is that the off of Mopac and Parmer, that that specific fries that we're talking
Mm-hmm.
about, that we've all been in, or you and I have been in
Yeah.
dozens of times, if not more. Right in that strip mall, there is a computer repair and customizing store.
Yeah.
And I was like, why on God's green earth are you down the street from Fry's? He's like, well, some people go in there, they get a price, too expensive. And then they're driving out of there's only one way
Mm-hmm.
in and out. And they're driving out, and what do they see? Me. Smart. You're a smart person.
Absolutely. Well, and I think Best Buy tried that with Geek Squad,
Geek
right?
Squad. It was
Or
ineffective.
whatever. But it's hard to make. I'm sure from a big business like that, it's
Right.
hard to make those work, right? The
Yeah.
computer repair business uses a lot of, like the flat screen TV repair business. They're not using new products. You go into a flat screen repair company, they're using a different, right? A
Is that a thing?
replaced. Absolutely. No, this is how they do it. This is how they survive that big companies can't. So because that's the thing about computers and flat screen TVs is technology changes so fast that they're not producing. It's not like a car where
Yeah,
a
they're
car
not making
comes
the
out
parts.
and they produce a Toyota water pump for the next 20 years. No, this TV, the screen that they made on these TVs, they may have only made as many of those screens as they made TVs until
Right,
they
yeah.
developed a new product or whatever. So if you bring that TV to get it repaired, the only way they can repair it or replace that screen is to buy another screen from an old
Yeah.
of that same TV. These computer repair places do the same thing because that motherboard for that computer may no longer be made, and it's
Yeah.
difficult to replace. Parts aren't interchangeable in computer
Yeah.
components. So what it's created is this back end, not black market, but this back end market
Right, yeah,
where they sell each other, right, components from, right, I'm going to sell you the motherboard because I need the video card, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean, and whatever. And that's how those independents stay in business.
Yeah.
Versus a Geek Squad or whatever, they have to buy new parts and locate new parts.
Yeah. So the independents are doing is effectively what you're saying is they're scrapping, right? They're okay.
100%.
I'm gonna buy this. Okay, you need a new whatever screen. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna buy the screen. I'm gonna charge you a price. I'm gonna make some profit there. But on the back end, I'm selling all the components that you didn't need to fix it. That
Same
makes
thing with
sense.
cell phone repair companies. All of these companies that are doing it in this way because it's the only way they survive, right? But it still happens to be less than buying a new computer or buying a new
Yeah.
phone or buying a new whatever. So as
Right.
long as that is the problem is it's not sustainable for older products. Every day that goes by is less likely for you finding a screen that fits that TV.
Yeah.
A motherboard that fits that computer, whatever.
And that's unfortunate for some people because some people just, and I know you're one of these people, like hang on to things for long.
Dude, I still have the original flat screen TV that I bought. Like the
Yeah.
original flat 32-inch heavy ass
Right.
flat
Yeah.
screen TV.
So
It's
yeah, so I don't. Everything if I get a new thing, I'm like out with the old, in with the new. You know.
well, but I've replaced the motherboard to that TV, and that's
My
exactly how I
gosh.
replaced it.
You
It
replaced
went
the
out.
motherboard?
I went to eBay. I got the serial number off of it. Went to eBay, found a broken that had a broken screen on
Yeah.
it. Bought it for something like $10. Unscrewed it, put it in. TV works perfect and has for
And
years.
let me tell you exactly how I would have solved the problem that you just described. Taking that 32-inch heavy television, tucked it in the, and then I would have went and bought a 55-inch from Costco for $8.
Right.
That's like,
right. And no, and I get why people do that, and there's obviously a time and a place for that. But you get a company, and this goes back to it, the opportunity coming out the other side, because we have created that environment, right?
Right.
Somebody, all of those people that still went to Fry's yesterday or whenever
Right.
it closed, right? Those have to go somewhere, right?
Yeah.
That the foot traffic that was going into Fry's a year ago still exists. They didn't go anywhere, right?
Right. And I just, and part of the article that we're going to link in the description is it talks a little bit about how this is a huge because they're based out of San Francisco. So they just said volume of real estate that is now opened up because of this is like hundreds and hundreds of homes will now, because they're going to build the high rises. They're going to try, and it's going to be huge. Right?
Well, I think you've got that all over commercial, right? Coming out of Dos Equis, you're going to have commercial real estate, which up until that point, all across America, especially in big cities like Austin and Central Texas and all of Florida, right, or whatever, they couldn't build. They've been building commercial for the last decade because they couldn't build it fast enough, right? And then now you have you're going to have again opportunity coming out of this is you're going to have a lot of these commercial businesses that shut down, and they need to be filled in, right?
So and that real estate, because like. You look at just that one store we're talking about, they're going to fit 50 different things in, right?
Oh, yeah, because there's no other current store, right? Single store that is going to utilize that space. You know what I mean? Your Walmarts, your Targets, those companies out there are out there building their own buildings. They're out there creating these stores.
They're not, and that store was old to begin with. So.
They're not moving into a space like this that probably already has a Walmart and a Target down the street, right?
I just had an idea for that location. I'm gonna call somebody on Monday, but
and by call somebody, he probably means me and tries to get me to spend more money on investing in something that
that's literally what I'm gonna do. Yeah.